What's Eating Prince Harry? Part 1. Hello and welcome to the channel. A recent comment prompted me to look closer into Prince Harry's medical issues. I gladly oblige, not least because medically there is a lot to learn from Prince Harry's case. There is copious information to decipher, courtesy of the subject himself, and moreover, he is seemingly open to exploring his own medical and mental status publicly, which is strangely at odds, of course, with his apparent desire for privacy. This cognitive dissonance is itself a symptom of his jumbled mind, but we will address this in a later video. This video addresses the organic, purely physical issues of Prince Harry. A little disclaimer. Everything I touch on is already out there in the media. I am not divulging anything that is not already known to the public. And more importantly, my goal on this channel is never to be unkind to anyone. I discuss medical issues, sometimes using well-known figures as a case history, so that it is easier for listeners and viewers to relate to them. Otherwise, it becomes too abstract, especially for an audience with no particular medical background. Linking the medical topics discussed here to a real-life person is purely illustrative and is not designed to be a hate fest against that person. Having said that, we are all entitled to our personal opinions, as long as they are respectful to others. So let's roll into today's matter. In fact, in this first part of the duology on the health issues that Prince Harry manifests, I think the title is slightly erroneous. This first part should be titled, What's Biting Prince Harry? Yes, you guessed right. I am about to go there. Frostbite, but not just any frostbite. Now, I realize that the inclusion of Prince Harry's frostbite story in his memoir Spare sparked many a meme, not least to do with Oedipus complex, considering his choice of treatment of his frostbite, namely the same cream that his mother used for her lips. I don't know if he really intended to, 1, give so much detail into this rather unusual connection to one's mother, or if 2, he really didn't see that this story could raise an eyebrow or 2. I suspect option 2 is the correct conclusion to draw, given what we know about Prince Harry's, as his mother declared, intellectual capacity. Now, this is of course not to insult or demean him. Not everybody can or should be an Einstein in this world. But as I shall go into in part 2, this state of affairs, when combined with certain other factors, leads to a cascade of problems that are best avoided. In other words, with the intellectual starting point of Prince Harry, and with all the additional risk factors that he has accrued with time, it's the perfect storm. The background to the frostbite, or more accurately, frost nip story, is that just before the wedding of his brother, in April 2011, Prince Harry went on an expedition to the North Pole with some veterans. Very commendable mission, of course, especially if the goal was to raise money for veterans and other military personnel. I don't know this for sure, but if that were the case, it would be very honorable. So, I salute him for this. The temperature was around minus 35 degrees Celsius. Prince Harry reported in his memoir that he got frostbite on his ears, cheeks, and manhood. Now, I don't know if you're seeing the same problems with this as I am. First, Let me explain where I don't see a problem before I delve into where my problem lies. The long and the short is, I see no problem with frostbite on the ears. The ears are interesting organs, not least because they have a dual function, not only designed for hearing, but also the inner ear is the organ that helps us to balance ourselves. What we call the ear is specifically named the pinna, P-I-N-N-A, or auricle, A-U-R-I-C-L-E, and is actually just the outer ear, the part that is visible. Most of the ear is hidden inside our heads. The auricle or pinna is one of those parts of the ear that we call the extremities, much like our fingers and toes. They protrude out of the body, so in geographic terms, I guess you could think of them as you would a peninsula as compared to the mainland. The thing about extremities is that they are very susceptible to cold weather. Their blood supply is just about sufficient at best under normal conditions, in normal temperature and at rest, when the body is not under physical stress, physical activity, etc. The minute you compromise that extremity by stressing it, exercising it, or causing its blood supply to be reduced by, for example, artificially constricting the artery or capillaries supplying it with blood, by cooling it, by plunging it in cold water or simply in cold air, you suddenly risk causing it to die. When the damage or insult is cold, we call the injury to the extremity frostbite. A stage before this frostbite, we call it frostnip. A special characteristic of the pinna or auricle is that it is made up of just skin and cartilage. That's it. In general, cartilage is extremely vulnerable to injury or damage of whatever nature. The tiniest of injuries and it dies very rapidly, or at least it gives rise to deformity and a misshapen form. More about this later. So yes, the auricle is very susceptible to cold injury. I can definitely vouch for the assertion that his auricles, if not covered up by a warm beanie or winter earmuffs, would get frostbitten. Here in Switzerland, temperatures drop to such lows as -20, -30 in the mountain regions. So I know that frostbite is very real. I know that frostbitten feeling very well. So I accept his story of the ear frostbite, no problem. Now let's look at the cheeks. I assume that he was referring to the ones in his face. But I can't be sure. In any case, the same principle applies to both possibilities. Did his cheeks get frostbitten? This is less believable in my opinion, for the simple reason that the cheeks are not extremities, far from it. The cheeks have a very good blood supply, and in fact, more than most organs. So I can accept that his cheeks could have gotten very cold, okay, but certainly not frostbitten. I would be more prepared to accept that his nose was frostbitten. The nose is, of course, another extremity, and in common with the ear, it also has its fair share of cartilage, making it a very vulnerable part of the body in cold weather, in the presence of anything that interferes with its blood supply. But with this whole story, my biggest problem is the frostbitten manhood. And when I say problem, I actually mean concern. Jokes apart, why would a doctor in Switzerland be concerned about Prince Harry's manhood? Why would any doctor be concerned about Prince Harry's or anyone else's manhood for that matter? I shall tell you. In In all my years as a doctor, I have never had a man come to me with a complaint of frostbite down there. And I have always lived and worked in cold countries. I don't think it's because all my male patients are shy. In fact, they gladly come to me to tell me or even show me all kinds of problems down there. It's not about the intimate nature of the organ itself. In my experience, I find men to be actually less timid about their intimate problems when their doctor is female, as opposed to how women are with respect to male doctors. Of course, there are solid social and biological reasons for this difference in behavior when relating to a doctor of the opposite sex. I realize that. Prince Harry reportedly sought medical help for his frostbite later, and all was well, we are told, by Prince Harry himself. But was it really? I would like to postulate, if I may, that all is not well down south for Prince Harry, or east, or west, or north. By the way, I think even Prince Harry has some insight into all not being well, because he does mention that the frostbite occurred weeks after the initial injury, which surprised him. I agree with him that this is not normal by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. I shall get into why shortly. I think the reason that no man has come to me for penile frostbite is that it just doesn't happen often. Yes, the male organ is indeed external and is an extremity. But what is different about this extremity is that it is usually, shall we say, unless there are special reasons involved, covered up. It shouldn't have been exposed to the same temperature as the other extremities, like the ear or nose, and indeed it wasn't in the case of Prince Harry and his North Pole expedition. He mentioned having previously used a sort of protection for his member, either before or after this frostbite incident, which warms up the area, preventing any damage. This is indeed a good idea. But what I would put forth as an argument is that normal North Pole expedition trousers are enough to prevent frostbite down there. I don't think men who live in bitterly cold climates wear a special cushion for 6 months of the year, do they? I would love to hear from any man who does. So, if we assume that Prince Harry was fully clothed during his expedition to the North Pole, then the fact that he had frost nip on his manhood is very concerning, actually. It shouldn't have happened for reasons I have just given. We don't hear that the other men on the expedition have had such problems down there. Or perhaps even if they did, they didn't mention it because they are just more discreet than Prince Harry. Sure, I can accept that not many people would be comfortable talking about their private parts in public, granted. So, of course, Prince Harry is on his own here. But in all seriousness, I am inclined to believe that it didn't happen to the other men, and it shouldn't have happened to Prince Harry. In any case, Prince Harry is known to disclose the private information of others, even without their consent or knowledge, so I am convinced, for this reason alone, that if any of the other men had this, we would have heard all about it by now. So why shouldn't it have happened to Prince Harry? Let me explain. In April 2011, Prince Harry would have been 26. This is relevant information. As I explained above, you get frostbite if you compromise the arterial supply or blood supply to an organ or body part. We have also established that if he was wearing trousers, his manhood was protected from the cold to a sufficient degree. If you put 2 and 2 together, something does not quite add up. Especially if I tell you that the same patient population who suffer from vascular, blood vessel related erectile dysfunction would be the same ones who would suffer from compromised blood vessel problems anywhere in their body. In other words, Prince Harry must have a problem with his blood vessels in general, and specifically the blood vessels down there. That has to be the only explanation as to why a young man fully clothed in cold but not extreme winter temperature would get frostbite on his manhood for weeks after the exposure to the cold. All I have heard on this extract of Prince Harry's memoir Spare is jokes about private parts and mother love taboo and so forth. I have never heard anyone express concern about the state of his circulation on hearing the story, but I can tell you that this was my very first thought when I heard the story. I cannot be the only one thinking this. Any other doctors want to comment? Especially angiologists or urologists? I would love to hear from you. Now, I have a post on impotence, otherwise known as erectile dysfunction, on this channel. I will link it below. Much of impotence is vascular related. I am of course not saying that Prince Harry suffers from this, not at all. But what concerns me is that he is at risk of this in the future, along with consequences of narrowed arteries, known in medical parlance as atherosclerosis, leading to heart attack, stroke, vascular dementia, vascular kidney disease, etc. Why do I think this? I tell you now, it is not that I think a 26-year-old man has atherosclerosis, or even a 40-year-old, as Prince Harry will be in this year. For sure, he has at least one risk factor for that, which is smoking. But that's not the problem I am leading you to. To illustrate my problem, I shall tell you a secret that any urban cardiologist will also tell you, and that is, my heart attack patients are divided clearly into 3 distinct groups. The first is what I would call the usual suspects, meaning, unfortunately, the stressed out, sedentary, obese, chain-smoking, diabetic 65-year-old men with cholesterol levels through the roof. This is, of course, a gross overgeneralization to make a point. The second group is the unexpected group, the sport fanatic who collapses at the finish line at his 7th marathon of the year with a heart attack, the young woman who has an unusual heart blood vessel anatomy, the teenager who had a stroke last year and now has a heart attack and no one knows why. The third group is a distinct group, the 20 or 30-something wealthy, recreational, cocaine-snorting high flyer. Cocaine. By his own admission, Prince Harry was at some point in his life a cocaine consumer. I postulate that this is the reason he had frostbite in such an unusual place. The effect of cocaine on the circulation is that it causes a very high blood pressure, which puts a huge strain on the heart. In addition, cocaine constricts blood vessels to such an extreme degree that the effect is similar to the effect of extreme cold. So imagine combining extreme cold and cocaine together. Then it doesn't matter how much of a cushion or how many layers of trousers you are wearing at the North Pole, your todger will certainly get frostbitten. And all the Elizabeth Arden cream in the world cannot help you. Not that Elizabeth Arden cream is a recognized treatment for frostbite, mind you. I don't know how Prince Harry consumed his cocaine. What I can say with certainty is that it was not snorted, at least not long term. Because remember what I said about cartilage and susceptibility to poor blood supply? Yes, the noses of cocaine snorters break down very quickly after sustained use. This British actress knows how this plays out. Off topic, but another similar destruction of the nose cartilage can occur with tertiary syphilis. Thankfully, my generation of doctors don't see this anymore because antibiotics have successfully eradicated all but the toughest cases of syphilis. I am, however, reliably told that in the old days, a doctor could guess if someone had had syphilis by the characteristically so-called saddle nose appearance, where the cartilage part of the nose collapses down. Look at this photo. I kid you not, a question based on this photo in the board exam for medicine reads, what is the likely occupation of this patient? A. Butcher, B. Opera singer, C. Sailor. I leave it to you to guess the correct answer. My fear for Prince Harry is this. He seems to have gotten away lightly with just frostbite this time. With continued cocaine use, it is not only heart attack and stroke he will have to contend with, but also a peculiar consequence of cocaine known as coronary artery dissection, where the heart arteries basically tear. It is not a nice way to die. Not that there is ever a nice way to die, but this one is particularly nasty because your heart arteries effectively rupture. And to dramatize it, to stress the unpleasantness of it all, your coronaries basically explode. More and more, we are recognizing certain medical states or conditions as signals for other medical problems. I have mentioned before, for example, in the impotence video, the linking of type 2 diabetes to Alzheimer's dementia, for example, to illustrate this. In the same video, I mentioned how erectile dysfunction is often a marker for cardiologists to signal cardiovascular disease in general. In this sense, the unusual symptom of frostbite because a penile artery is extremely constricted is a sign that all is not well with the circulation and heart. And immediate stop to the cocaine habit is warranted, followed by regular follow-up and good medical management of the other risk factors that lead to cardiovascular disease. At least, if I were Prince Harry's doctor, this is what my strategy would be for him on hearing his frostbite story. Because for a doctor, this frostbite story is not funny at all. It is a cause for concern. On that somber note, I shall end the video here. What do you think of this medical angle to Prince Harry's oversharing of intimate information? If I may say so, I am actually pleased he shared that story because a doctor could always use his story to educate others about circulatory problems. If one makes the connection with drugs, it could also be used as a cautionary tale to steer young people away from drugs. I tell you the same funny story I told in the impotence video to finish on a lighter note. I had a young patient hell-bent on ruining his life with drugs and cigarettes. His mother begged and begged me to talk to him, but in a way that was not obvious that she had put me up to it. That's a tough one. I tried with all the usual fear-mongering. You are going to die of a heart attack. You will get a stroke. All to no avail. Then one day he came to see me accompanied by his girlfriend, a very attractive girl. I had a naughty idea. I played my last card on him. I looked him in the eye, then at his girlfriend, then back at him as I slowly said, you know, with all the smoking you do and all these drugs you consume, you risk losing your girlfriend. He asked why, in a cocky, arrogant manner. I said, because you will soon get impotent. You know what? 2 weeks later, his mother called to ask how I had done it. He was now clean. He'd given up smoking. This young man had enough respect for his manhood to not compromise it. Does Prince Harry have the same respect for his? Leaving you with this rhetorical question, I reiterate my plea to stay healthy. And as ever, if you have any questions relating to any part of your body, do feel free to Askadoc.